So change. Truly the only certainty in life is change. So it's something that it would benefit all of us to get good at, adapting to different circumstances and to change, to going with the flow, with the cycles of life. Stephen Hawking said intelligence is the ability to adapt to change, and he was certainly brilliant at that. Nature is the best obvious example of showing us the beauty of change and the inevitability of change. As you watch spring and all the flowers coming out turn into summer with all the warmth and the sunshine, morphing into autumn where the leaves change colour and fall, and then into winter with colder, darker nights, and then back into spring. It's just the nature of things, isn't it? To change and evolve and morph. But there is some order in that seeming chaos. Other examples are things like roses, blooming and looking perfect and stunning and beautiful, and then they fade and they seem to die as they fall to the ground, and sure enough they resurrect the next year every time. So there are seasons and times for different cycles in life, and I guess the more we can accept that and be in the flow with that, the better for everyone. There's a great Sufi story, some of you might have heard it, about this king who had this wonderful big kingdom, and he was surrounded by all these great scholars and wise men. And this king was quite, emotional. He'd often be like ecstatic or thoroughly depressed, and it was a bit of a roller coaster. And so he said one day to he called together all of the scholars and wise men of his kingdom. And he said to them that he had bought this beautiful, very special ring, and it had one diamond on it, and under that he wanted to inscribe on the ring, on the inside of the ring, just a very short, wise message of a few words that he could turn to whenever he was down or desperate or needed the best advice possible, and that he could pass on to his children and grandchildren for helping them in the future. So all these very, very wise scholars put their heads together, and they were philosophers, and they could talk for hours about that kind of thing, but none of them were able to put it succinctly in a few words to satisfy him. None of them. They couldn't do it. So the king was a bit upset by this, and that night he was in a room with his old servant who had also served his father and the whole family for a while, and he really admired and respected him. So he asked him, do you have any advice about this issue? And the servant said, well, I'm no scholar, I'm no wise man, but while I was serving your father, there was this mystic who came to visit us, and I was very impressed with him and the way he lived. And just before he left, as a sort of symbol of gratitude, he gave me this piece of paper, and it had just 4 words on it. And I'm sure that that's what you want on your ring. And the king got really excited, and he said, but don't look at those words, have them inscribed, don't look at them until you are really desperate and you've tried everything and you can think of no solution, then read what's on the ring. So the king obeyed and went along with this. And it wasn't too long after that his kingdom got invaded, and the king had to flee. There were these enemies following him and trying to get him out of the kingdom. And so he's on horseback, riding for his life. And after a couple of hours of riding and this desperate, he's lost everything and he's at the end of his tether, he came to this dead end, and it was like a cliff edge, and he was sure he was being pursued from behind, and it was he had just no idea what to do, completely lost, desperate. And then suddenly he remembered this ring. So he took it off and he had a look at what it said. And this peace came over him as he read it, this sort of calm energy just enveloped him, and it said, "This too shall pass." And he realised, when he sort of came back to the present moment, he realised that he couldn't hear hooves anymore. He wasn't being chased anymore. So there was this huge relief, and like it was almost like a miraculous moment for him. And he cautiously, steadily sort of started going back towards the kingdom. And sure enough, his people had managed to fight the enemy, and now he was somehow able to like take it back. He was able to go back in, take over the kingdom again. He arranged for this massive party with music and dancing and the best food ever, and he was so happy. He'd probably never been happier ever. He was ecstatic. He was totally joyful and blissed out. And as he's sitting at his dinner table, enjoying this feast and the like proudest moment of his life, really taking back his kingdom, the old servant came over to him and whispered in his ear, "Now might be another good moment to look at your ring." And he said, "What were you talking about? You told me only when I'm desperate, when things have got so bad that I don't know what to do." And the servant said, "There were 2 times in life that it was good to look at the ring. One time when you're desperate and it's all very, very bad. The other time when everything's going perfectly and you're very happy." And so he was like a bit baffled, and he took it off again and read it again. "This too shall pass." And he just got that wave of calm again as he realized that of course this wasn't going to last. Of course everything's going to just keep changing and flowing, and the best thing any of us can do with that, which is true for all of us, of course, is to accept that and to adapt to that and to try and flow and change with life as best we can. So sometimes we're asked to adapt to a great deal of change, and it can happen suddenly. But the good news is that I think humans are really good at that. I think we're genuinely really good at adapting and changing and adapting to different foods, environments, situations. Remarkably good at it, in my opinion. There's another funny story. There's another story about the importance of adapting and flowing with change, which I will read to you. This is allegedly an actual transcript of a US naval ship with Canadian authorities off the coast of Newfoundland, and it was in October 1995. And the radio conversation was released by the Chief of Naval Operations. So this American boat starts the conversation saying, "Please divert your course 15 degrees to the north to avoid a collision." Canadians: "Recommend you divert your course 15 degrees to the south to avoid collision." Americans: "This is the captain of a US Navy ship. I say again, divert your course." Canadians: "No, I say again, you divert your course." Americans: "This is the aircraft carrier USS Abraham Lincoln, the second largest ship in the United States Navy fleet. We are accompanied by 3 destroyers, 3 cruisers, and numerous support vessels. I demand that you change your course 15 degrees north. That's 15 degrees north, or countermeasures will be taken to ensure the safety of this ship." Canadians: "This is a lighthouse. Your call." So it's just another funny example of the need to adapt. It's possible that anecdote isn't even true, but it's quite an amusing tale, but you get the idea. And there's the saying that says, you can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf. And so my hope is that with these tools and with the book that goes with it, I provide you with some tools to help you learn to surf, so to speak.